Alright, well, for Deck Tech Wednesday, it was a Tuesday, but I moved it to Wednesday. I want to look at a green deck that has been working for me pretty well. Now, of course, every deck has its occasional losses, but this one has been kind of spicy. So, we're looking at our deck, and I want to put a little bit of big stuff and power into it. So anyway, we're going to start off with the Tajuru Brightblade. It is Death Touch. Run 3 of them. 1/1. The purpose of the deck is to be small and to be hitting quick. Elvish War Master. Whenever he spots an elf when he comes into play, or whenever an elf enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. And the second ability I don't use as often because he's not the main character. I've only got 2 of them. Again, I don't have hardly any rares or mythic rares that I use, so I'm going with what I have. I've got 2 of him, and he does pump up your other creatures and give them Death Touch, and I have used that once. Very handy. Makes people hesitant to do anything. Kazandu Nectapart. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. Throw out a lot of lands in this deck. Tangled Florahedron. You can tap for a mana, or you can use it as Tangled Veil and give it a mana as a land. Whirling Regrowth. That's going to come in handy with my next card. Sacrifice a land, search a library for up to 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle. And of course, everybody knows about this little burger. The scute, as I like to call him. Whenever land enters the battlefield, make a 1/1 insect creature token. If you have 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scute Swarm instead. He tends to want to make people scoop once he gets going. And only a couple lands going down after 6. I mean, he makes copies of himself. Yeah, he can make a ton of copies. Tajuru Snarecaster. Gives me reach, so I have something to block flyers. Spirit of the Alderguard. When Scute Swarm is down, he lets you go and search in the library for an extra land. That can be handy because it can help you search for lands. Cosmos Elixir, you do gain life in this deck. So when this is in play, at the beginning of your end step, you can draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. That comes in handy either way. Myriad Construct, if he's kicked. I have kicked it a couple times. But it is a 4/4, and if it's kicked, it enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter for each non-basic land your opponents control. And when he dies, because of a target of a spell, he creates 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its power. I put this in, I'm thinking about taking it back out, because it is 5 mana to play. But right now it's in there, and I have used it a couple times. Roll a tap 2 and tap it. Roll a d20 and subtract the number of cards in your hand. If the result is 0 or less, discard your hand. 1 through 9, return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. That's nice, especially if they kill scutes. It does give you reanimation from your graveyard. 10 through 19, draw 2 cards. And then 20, put a creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. When that creature dies, its owner loses the game. Cultivator Colossus. I throw out a bunch of mana, so my objective for this was to get some bigger creatures in there as well. His power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands I control, and when he enters the battlefield, I may put a land card from my hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. Nice. Rampaging Bronodon is a card that is not in Standard, but because of Arena, it is on Arena. Whenever Rampaging Bela Bronzodon attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each land you control, and has trample. If they get rid of him, he is a target that keeps other stuff protected because he can get really, really big on one turn to attack. Contortionist Troop is another one. X in green. When he enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it. It's like a Hydra almost. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. With the Mariad Landscape or with the Mariad Construct, that's a nice addition. Ochre Jelly. It's an ooze. And when it has trample, and when it enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it, it's only an X and 1. When he dies, if it had 2 or more counters on it, create a token that's a copy of it at the beginning of the next end step. The token enters the battlefield with half that many 1/1 counters on it, rounded down. Now, lands are pretty simple. I think I'm going to have to make an adjustment. But I am running, as you can see, 23 snow-covered lands. I have really grown to like those snow-covered lands when I can play them. I don't have any benefits to it. I just think that art is just really pretty. But anyway, that's my deck. And it is a pretty spicy one. It throws out a ton of lands, so I can throw some of the bigger creatures out for big. They have to target it, which leaves some of my smaller stuff open. But like I said, when the Scute Swarm comes out, he's a threat you really do need to take care of, even though he's only a 1/1. Because with some of my cards, I can make him bigger. And not only that, but then when he makes copies of himself, whenever land comes into play. That's really how I've gotten most of my wins is through him. But the bigger creatures gets centered on and concentrated on. So when they come out and play, there's not a lot of them, but when they come out and play, they need to be dealt with, which can leave Scute Swarm wide open. And I can get some easy damage in with a Tangled Finger. With a Tajuru Bright Blade, because he's Death Touch, and nobody wants to lose creatures to Death Touch. So I either be aggressive with him, or I sit back and just let him sit. Now, there's plenty of options I can do with this deck to make it better. But I'm going to ask you to like, share, and subscribe. And if you really like the deck, or you have improvements you can think of, please leave comments in the comment section, and let me know what you guys think. Now, again, the purpose of my deck, everybody builds decks, and they throw the decks on there. And I get there's decks that are better than this mono green one. This one was built more for a goal to have so many green or blue, and I tend to get some wins with it, because and Scute Swarm is really good. If you can get that down and get that thing going, you can get a lot of stuff done. Make a lot of copies, and make a lot of chump blockers, and he can do a lot of work. But yeah, some of these other creatures, they're not huge, but you add them all together and fill up your board. And with the extra card draw with the Cosmos Elixir, you can still stay in the game pretty easily. Now, I can throw some air defense in there, and I can do some stuff like that, because green is really good at attacking air creatures or enchantments or artifacts. But I tend to find you throw more creature-happy stuff out there, load the board. Right now in this meta with what everybody plays, that gives me a good shot to get a lot of good shots in to hurt people. I thought about throwing some other stuff in there, but this deck seems to flow. And like I said, if you can get Scute Swarm down and get him to load up the board, that helps out a lot. The Cosmos Elixir, that's what really does a lot for card draw. You have the life, you have Death Touch on the field. People tend to not want to lose their stuff, so that leaves stuff wide open. I know my tripod has disappeared, and I finally got one to keep everything steady, but I'm not sure where it's at, so my video is kind of bouncing around a little bit. I do apologize, but I've been trying to work on that. And I'm going to end the video here. But that's my deck. It's fun and very enjoyable. And if you have a green or a land happy thing, this thing gets you out a lot of lands. You guys have a good day and be blessed.